Howdy doody, my name is Cameron, better known as Venus Theory. This is the official UVI YouTube channel, and you are watching it with your eyeballs. Hopefully. Last time I was here on the channel, we made a 1-minute trailer cue using World Suite 2, and if you haven't watched that, you can go check that video out. It was a whole lot of fun. I absolutely love cinematic music and doing trailer work, and in this video, we're going to be doing a 30-second trailer edit from start to finish. Music is meant to make you feel something, and I think that trailer work, in a way, is kind of like the ultimate form of that, because it is purely and absolutely about emotion and feeling and adapting to whatever's on the screen. And it makes you kind of get out of your comfort zone as well in terms of abandoning more conventional music making approaches, and I find a lot of value in that. Even if you're not a media composer yourself, and maybe it's something you don't even have any interest in, I think this is a great creative exercise that makes you dust off some of those music muscles that might be kind of gathering dust in the back of your brain, and you might learn something that you can take with you into future sessions. In this video, we're going to be using the UVI libraries Whoosh, Drone, Meteor, and Asteroid, which should contain everything we need to do a trailer edit. So let's hop in the DAW and get it poppin'. First up, obviously, we need to watch the trailer and see what we're working with and start getting some ideas together. Let's give this a play, see what we're working with, and then we'll start getting our notes together. Rated R, okay. Cut to black, creepy warehouse. Creepy stuff, really dark. Not a good place to be. A lot of fast cuts, sort of claustrophobic. A lot of cut to black, creepy hallway. Ooh, freaky burning thing at the end there. All right, so from that, I have pulled a few things. Clicking through and judging by the overall tone, this seems to be probably a horror movie or mystery movie with elements of action and maybe even a sense of adventure. It looks like they're sort of exploring this, so I'm getting kind of general blockbuster vibes. I think that's kind of the overall tone we're aiming for here. It's modern day, it's not a period piece. We've got flashlights, the building looks to be pretty modern construction and stuff, so we don't really need to do anything period specific in terms of sound. It seems to be all set in one environment. The best I can tell, it looks like it's all set in this creepy abandoned warehouse, and I can't tell where that environment is. There's nothing that gives me any kind of regional indicator, so probably we're gonna go for a more general sonic palette rather than aiming for any kind of regional sounds to share where the film is taking place. It all seems to be in this industrial warehouse, so as well, we're thinking big industrial rooms, big industrial machinery. We got these cracked walls and big rusty doors and things like that. So sonically, those are some things we want to try and convey. The first thing I like to do whenever I'm doing trailer edits is add a marker track just to indicate any major cuts or transitions that I know I'm going to want to accent with the trailer edit. So I've gone through and just marked any major cuts. It starts with this cut to black. So I marked where it cuts in, and I think you get the idea. Here's a cut, here's another cut, longer sort of thing here, cut again to black. Here's where it comes back in, and I've marked that, so I'm not gonna make you sit here and watch me do that, but it's a good idea just so we know kind of the pacing of things and where we need to punch things up a bit. All right, hits are done. First up here, I've added some Asteroid, and what I did with this is instead of playing it like a drum kit as you might traditionally, I've just layered up a few sounds by hitting a few keys at the same time, which creates a pretty cool cinematic hit, I think, and I've used that as kind of one of the main color palettes. As well, if we listen carefully, we've got some metallic textures and things that sort of started to give it that industrial building thing. Next up in Meteor, I found this preset, which sounds really neat. I like that it almost sounds like if you were in a big warehouse and you were really far away and someone hit like a giant sheet of metal or closed a very big door. So that layers really, really well with that sound I made in Asteroid. And that gives us sort of the final product. A lot of this cinematic sound design stuff is simply about layering different textures and timbres. To further layer things up here, I made one more big hit section in Asteroid with a couple variations to use throughout the trailer. So I pulled up one of the kits and changed out a few of these sounds because you can change these for any sound you want and go in and edit them individually. So I ended up with this, which one of them has this big gong thing. Just a cool extra metallic layer that has that sort of rusty feel. And then later on, I did the same hit, just removing the gong. Just sort of a darker toned thing that has this kind of foreboding energy to it. In another instance of Meteor, I found this sound called Classic Hit 2, which sounds like this. Just sounds like a huge industrial warehouse slam. With Meteor, you have a rise and an impact, and you get full control over all of these elements. You can even go in and change out the sounds if you like. So originally the sound was like this, but I didn't really need that rise. I just wanted more of that big kind of metal, chunky, rusty slam. So I just disabled the rise altogether. And there was another layer here to it that I thought just felt maybe a bit more sci-fi than like industrial. So I just turned that off and got the final sound here. Finally, closing things off with the hits here, at the very end of the trailer, I used that long kind of droning metal sound. But because it's the end of the trailer, I felt like that needed a bit more weight, but I didn't want to use one of these other big impacts because I feel like we've already done a lot of that. And I like to do a lot of contrast with my trailer edit work where I kind of do sort of an anti-climax feel, if you will. So what I did is add this sound called Skyscraper. Just a big, chunky downer thing, and it layers really nicely with that. It has a lot of the same texture, but it just punches up the start of it with more of a transient. With all that done, let's play through a bit of the trailer here just to get a sense of what these hits add. So I'm really just accenting any major cuts in the trailer. Building up some energy. And at the end, sort of dark anti-climax thing. So that's kind of the first thing here, and it helps me make some more informed decisions with adding other elements of where things are and where things build and where things drop. With all of our major hit points done in the trailer, now it's time to add some swooping transitions, risers, and uplifts, downlifts, things like that, just to not only accent these big hits, but also build a sense of pacing and energy to the trailer. First up here, I've got Meteor with the sound Explosion Brass. Bit of a subtle one, but I liked how it kind of sounds like when leaves roll down the street or like when paint chips kind of scatter across a concrete floor. So I thought that was a great texture that really complements what we're seeing on the screen. Next up in Whoosh, I found Resonant Evil, which sounds like this. It's a really great combination of texture and tone, and I think it fits that industrial vibe because we have this metallic sound from these horns, but we also have this kind of rushing wind thing like we're in a large empty room, so I think that works well. In one last instance of Whoosh here, I found a sound called Metal Hammer, which metal and hammer both really fit the industrial tone, and I think this works well also. Gives us that kind of big industrial door closing sort of thing and should work great. As you might have noticed by now, I like to keep things pretty simple with trailer edits. I find a lot of the time it's not about selecting 1,000,001 sounds. It's about finding 5 to 10 sounds that really just complement what's on the picture and reusing them and layering them in different ways. Because by layering these sounds, you get sort of different sounds, and it just makes your life as the trailer editor, composer, a lot easier. One other thing here that I've done is actually bounce these out to audio. Because we're working with timecode and we're working with such precise edits, it's very important that these transitions line up exactly where they need to go. So you can see I've rendered these down to audio and lined them up precisely with my hit points so they just line up exactly where they need to go and really work with these hits. Queuing up the picture once again, let's take another listen now that we've got our transitions and hits in place. Cool. Cool, and I think that's going to act as our general sound bed, and everything there so far really works for me, I think. With all that done, now it's time to really start setting the mood with some drones and stringers, and I think this is probably the most fun part of all this. Starting things off here, I've used drone, which in short allows us to combine two different sources to create these droning textures and stuff. I've also mapped the feedback loop and swarm controls here to my MIDI controller, so I can take this sound and get a lot of different movements and textures from it. This is typically how I will record these drones. I'll go through and do sort of a first pass, just playing whatever I think fits. Then I'll record over that and do some automations to get these movements. And then I may go back over it once more just to add some gentle pitch warbles by just barely moving the pitch wheel up and down, and that gives you a really cool final product. And again, this is all built up in layers. This sound here is Calm Before the Storm, so I've used this one as kind of the main drone throughout the whole thing because it felt sort of spooky and horror or maybe action-y somewhere around that neighborhood. So I think this kind of sets the overall tone, and from here it was about building on top of that with textures that then complement the sort of theme that I'm getting from the trailer with the industrial stuff and those kind of textures. The next sound I used here is Beauty Chaos, which is a really nice tonal element. It has a nice, gentle synth brass sort of feel, but here we get those shaky, shimmery textures that add just a sense of creepiness. And I've used the Chaos modulator here just because that's gonna sort of give me random, shivery, spooky chaos now and again, just to complement the long, droning sustain. Towards the end of the trailer, I've used augmented strings, once again tying the swarm control to my MIDI controller to get this really cool sort of riser thing. So it's not necessarily a drone, but I've used drone to build a riser that swells up to that last impact. Below that, I've got Meteor with the sound Quiet Place, and this isn't really a drone, but I usually do kind of tones and drones in the same folder, and this sound sounds like this. So not necessarily an impact, not necessarily a drone, but it does have this sort of soft woo movement to it, and I felt like that just accented a few points in the trailer where it almost acts as a whoosh or transition effect for the drones. Another sound I've used here towards the end is Metamorphosis, which sounds like this, which I thought just had a nice creepy texture to it. So I'm using that in that last buildup just to add this sense of anticipation. One of the other key elements here I've used is Low Brass. Just has a nice big distorted feel, so I've just used a couple low notes from this, just to add that sort of subby energy. But if we listen to it, it also has this kind of industrial grating distortion to it. I almost picture that like dragging a heavy piece of machinery across concrete or something, so I felt like that just added another layer to the overall atmosphere. Closing off the drone and tone folder here, I've got Ghost Town, which sounds like this. Really cool, super creepy texture, and I've used that just kind of as like a rising whoosh, whoosh motion, again, just to add some transitions and filler to the tone and drone elements. Queuing up the picture here, let's take a listen to just the drone layers and see how that adds a nice sense of atmosphere. You can see some of them are kind of transition things. Now we're building, building, building. Oh no, creepy hallway. Burning thing. And that is all the tonal elements. As you probably noticed, there's a fairly long tail to this, especially on that last cut. So I've gone through and just tweaked things with a little bit of automation here to toggle a mute as soon as that last impact happens, so we get this really clean boom end of trailer. So I think with that, we're done. Let's take a look at the final result. Coming soon to a theater near you. Not really though. And that's everything for this one. That is how you can make a trailer edit using UVI's Whoosh, Meteor, Drone, and Asteroid libraries. It's a whole lot of fun and it's a great creative exercise, like I said, so do try this out for yourself because you might learn a thing or two, even if media composition isn't necessarily your thing. All of the libraries used in this video are available now. If you want to check them out for yourself, you can find more information with the links down in the description below. They all run inside of the free UVI workstation, and you can even run them inside of Falcon if you really want to take them up a notch and get crazy. Thank you to UVI for having me here on the channel once again. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And as always, I hope this inspires you to get out there and make something awesome.